As we say, okay, okay, here we go. So good evening, welcome once again. And as we set the intention of joy and self-love and open hearts this evening, I invite you to start off with taking a deep breath. I think I unmuted. I'm okay. Are we? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So please take a deep breath. Relax your shoulders, move them away from your neck. Relax and unclench your jaw. Feel your chair under you, your feet on the floor, being mindful of our presence, and tune into the wisdom of your own inner knowing and the fellowship of all of us together, and know from my heart genuinely, I think of you as loving and compassionate and kind, and it's just so wonderful that we can all get together. So as we get started this evening, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of good touch. So in previous sessions, what we have been doing is kind of working on different reflex points, different meridian points. Both Meg and I have been sharing some of those with you. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the feet. Many people just do like to have their feet touched. So working the feet is really a very nice thing. And the points that I'm going to show you tonight are points that you can do on yourself, but also points that you can do on somebody else. So if somebody likes to have their feet touched, these are things that you can do on somebody else just to kind of calm them down. What have we all been missing during the time of COVID? Well, for many of us, it's been being touched. How many of us have been so concerned about or have been yearning for hugs from people and friends and grandchildren and relatives that we just haven't been able to get together with. Real and anticipated hugs and from loved ones are really the fundamental element of human behavior and culture. And touch is obviously extremely important, whether we're lovingly touching ourselves. And by the way, when I refer to touch, I'm referring to wholesome, appropriate, perhaps therapeutic touch, the kind of touch that just makes us feel good when it is received. In 2018, I was sent a study that was done by the British Broadcasting Company, who conducted a 2-year study on the whole issue of touch. And it was entitled The Anatomy of Touch, and It's All in the Mind. And I just wanted to share some of the conclusions of this 2-year-long study that was conducted, because some of it just really, it was very useful in the kind of work that I do. And what did they learn after 2 years? Well, they learned many things. One was that most people don't feel that they get enough touch, enough loving, appropriate, caring touch. That the 3 most common words that people use to describe the kind of touch that we're talking about here is comforting, loving, and warm. And while we can receive that from other people, we can also give it to ourselves in a kind and loving way. One other thing that they learned is that almost 2/3 of people do not like to be touched by a stranger. And I think that makes infinite sense. And that people who like interpersonal touch tend to have higher levels of well-being. So if you're someone who typically likes to be hugged, your internal self is probably a little bit more modulated. Just want to tell you a quick story about somebody whom I'm actually going to work on tomorrow. It's a fellow who has been served by the Philadelphia Office of Intellectual Disability Services. And John is somebody who, over the many years that I have known him, has had great difficulty with the whole idea of anger management, to put it mildly. He has put several people in the hospital. He's been arrested. He's just somebody who has been on many different fronts, very, very challenging to serve. And when I was working in Philadelphia, I went to numerous meetings about him, because no matter what it seemed like we tried, it just didn't work. And so, but that didn't keep us from coming together and keep trying, because, you know, that's what you have to do when you're working with somebody who's got very, very challenging behaviors. It's got to keep your thinking cap on and forge ahead. At one of the last meetings that I attended for him, his mother said, you know, the only time he's happy is when he knows he's going to the podiatrist. And everybody else who was sitting around the table said, you know, you're right. When he knows he's going to the podiatrist and he's having his feet worked on, he's not only good before he goes, but it kind of lingers for a few days after. What do you think that's all about? And by this time, I knew a little something about reflexology and asked the group, has anybody ever tried reflexology? Well, nobody knew what reflexology was. Now, of course, you all do. And to make a very long story short, we made arrangements for me to go up and to kind of see if this was something that he would be interested in, and it would be something that would provide a soothing opportunity for him, and kind of ground him in a way that we were just kind of looking for. Well, to make a long story short, a guy who 5 years ago was in a $500,000 program because he was so difficult to serve, who was over 150 pounds overweight, who was certainly not working, who was very challenging, and where they had a revolving door of staff, is now 150 pounds lighter in a program that is costing a quarter of that amount, is working 2 jobs. And it's all about good touch, good, wholesome, therapeutic touch, and receiving it in a way that is in the way that it is intended to be received, in a kind, gentle, loving, and compassionate manner. So when we talk about, when I talk about touch, I have seen what could be construed as miracles, and John certainly represents one of them. And so I just wanted to share this with you. By the way, it's nothing that I do. I know the techniques. It's very much about what resonates with the recipient. And so if you are somebody who likes to have your feet touched, if you are somebody who likes to have your ears touched, he happens to like that too. If you are somebody who likes to have your face touched in a way where the intention is for your highest and best good, then only good things can come from that. So that is essentially what we're talking about. Just one last thing. Why is touch vitally important? Well, here are some things that the neuroscientists tell us about touch. The literature says that when you're being touched in a way that is helpful and you accept it, it can reduce pain and stress. So you know that from your children. They fall down, they run in, they want a hug. And when you're hugging them, that hurt on their leg or their arm or wherever it was mystically goes away, right? So good touch, we know, can reduce pain and stress. It plays a primary role in our development and well-being. In young children especially, there are literally hundreds of studies about the need for touch in brain development. extremely important. Young children absolutely, positively need to be touched. And sadly, in our culture now, that people are so concerned that there will be some pushback that children are not being touched in day programs and nursery schools in the way that is frankly just optimum for their development. It calms cardiovascular distress. Of course, it signals trust and safety. So when you're being hugged by somebody who loves you and you know it, you feel safe and trusted. There are increasingly studies that are showing the degree to which good, wholesome, kind, therapeutic touch decreases violence. Less touch as a child is a likely marker for negative behaviors later on. Touch, of course, good touch in this way can also promote learning and engagement. It does wonderful things for the immune system. It releases oxytocin. And one I'm going to read to you. Basic warm touch calms cardiovascular stress. It activates the body's vagus nerve. You've heard about that. We talked about that before, which is intimately involved with our compassionate response. And the last study I read just today was one that was done with NBA players. And what they found is NBA players who touch each other. And, you've seen, if you've ever watched a basketball game, you see them sort of patting each other on the bottom and hugging each other and smacking each other on the back and endorsing each other. They've actually done studies where teams who do that and where that kind of body contact is encouraged in an appropriate way, those teams are actually championship teams. So those teams actually win more. So the idea about touch is really important. So tonight I'm going to talk about a little self-touch on the feet, and suggest that when you're working on your own feet, you might want to use a little cream. If you're working on somebody else's feet, you might want to use a little cream because you kind of want to get glide. So the first consideration is that you kind of want to make sure that you kind of get onto the feet in a way that is gentle but firm. Okay, so when you're working your feet in a kind of a reflexology way, you want to kind of get on there in a firm and gentle way. So one thing that you can do is just sort of warm up the tissue a little bit. And one of the ways I like to do that is just to sort of take my fingers and just sort of stretch out the starting from the top at the metatarsals and just kind of working my way down, a little cream, okay. A calming and stress meridian point is right here on the bottom of the foot. So one way that you can engage that calming point is by taking your knuckle and just kind of making circles at the bottom of the talus here, going one direction and the other, okay. So in reflexology terminology, this area is this area right here at the bottom. It corresponds to the pelvis. So one of the things that we can do is just to sort of go up around the bottom of our foot, just taking a few fingers. Again, you can just sort of stretch that area a little bit more to kind of move that tissue around. If you're having lower back problems, if you're having hip problems, this is a nice, good area in which to work right here. So right across the bottom on the pelvis. Okay, up a little further between the pelvis and the middle of the foot corresponds to the lower abdominal area. So for indigestion and constipation, This is an area that you might want to work gently, but firmly. On children, you want to go a little bit lighter. So if your little one comes to you with a tummy ache, this is an area that you can work. But on children, we always go a little bit more gently. The upper abdominal area, so that's the area around which your arch is, okay? So for tummy issues, sometimes children who are crying have a hard time kind of getting a deep breath. When I'm working, when I am working with some of the folks that I do work with who have a hard time just knowing how to take a deep breath, typically what I do is ask them to take a deep breath by filling up their stomach and their chest with air. And while they're doing that, I work on this upper abdominal area for reasons that I don't fully understand. It seems to be a cue to get people to breathe. So you can try that too. And the chest area, which is, corresponds to the same areas that we talked about on the hands, up here in the metatarsals, corresponds to the chest. So for colds and allergies, again, you can use your fingers and kind of press those areas apart. Another thing that I do is to just sort of take the knuckles and just kind of make little circles around. It has a kind of a nice little feeling, just making circles around on the feet. So that's very good for colds and allergies. Okay. And then for those people whose allergies affect them in the sinuses, the sinus points are all along the 4 toes, starting at the middle toe, these toes. So just kind of rolling around and on the pads of these toes. This is a great antidote for sinuses. Okay. And then 3 more points that I'd like to call to your attention. The solar plexus. So for people that are in distress, having a hard time calming down. So remember on the hand, we said that the solar plexus point is where we bend our little finger and kind of roll around in there. That's the point on the hand. On the foot, it's right about, so you can kind of gauge and you just kind of roll around there. Again, you can also use your knuckle. It depends upon what you like and what the person that you're working on likes. Okay. Last 2 points. This big toe, as Megan, I've both said at different times, corresponds to your brain area. So this is a good headache point. Okay, so right in the middle, if you look at your big toe, if you're kind of facing your big toe, there's a little area of skin that kind of juts out. In reflexology terminology, that's the area that corresponds to the hypothalamus. So headaches, foggy brain, all of those kinds of distress issues, just by rolling around on that little extra point that kind of darts out there a little bit. In the morning, if I wake up and I'm kind of feeling a little bit out of sorts or a little bit anxiety prone, this is an area that I work on my feet. And then during the day, the same corresponding area on my thumb. And last but not least, the spinal line, just taking your index finger and just kind of going up. Children really like this. This is has a naturally calming spirit about it. So with that, you've pretty much got the whole foot, the pelvic area, the lower abdominal area, the upper abdominal area, the lung area, the sinus area, the brain area, and the spine area. Okay? Okay. So practice on your own feet, on your own hands. See what that does for you. Hopefully it'll be relaxing. And if you're somebody who, once again, has trouble sort of falling off to sleep, or you get into bed and you're kind of tossing and turning, rather than tossing and turning, turn on the light, get a little cream and work on your feet or work on your hands and see if that, your own good, loving, caring, kind touch to yourself provides the impetus for your body to chill out a little bit and to kind of go in the direction that you want it to go. Okay, so any questions? Okay. Okay, so let's finish up tonight with a little meditation so that you don't need as much work tonight on your feet or your hands or even your face or your ears. You just kind of connect the evening to a kind of relaxation that is about cherishing you. So again, I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath, sit back in your chair. Tonight, we're going to imagine ourselves on the top of a mountain. Allow yourself to be there on the top of the mountain, a beautiful, majestic mountain, a mountain that is blanketed with grass and wildflowers and beautiful trees that are blooming in the spring. Feel the refreshing air gently blowing, alive and refreshing. Look down and see the grass that covers the ground. Each blade of grass is unique, a reflection of the uniqueness of all of us. A gentle breeze blows through the grass. The blades sway back and forth, easily, naturally, lovingly. Look around and notice the delicate and beautiful wildflowers. A rainbow of color, flowers, yellow and red and purple and blue, in a rainbow of colors. The wildflowers poking their petals all around. They are beautiful. They are inspirational. Reflect now upon the relationship of the grass and the wildflowers, living and growing together in their diversity, sharing the earth and all its abundant resources, being nurtured and being cared for. Notice the interplay of sunlight and shadows upon the grass and the flowers, constant yet ever-changing, living and thriving together, flourishing together in unison. Now draw your attention to the trees, the majestic and noble trees upon the mountain. Notice their trunks, providing support and strength. See the bark covering the trunk of the tree, providing protection to the tree, protecting its life force fully and completely. Reach out and touch the tree's protective covering. Now notice the canopy of branches and leaves towering up from the tree, reaching toward the sky. Watch as the leaves and branches blow gently in the breeze. Watch as the sunlight shines down, creating patterns of light and shadow upon the leaves. The leaves wave back and forth, dance back and forth, the music to the music of the breeze. The breeze blows the leaves and it sounds so soft and constant, yet ever changing. The profound drama of nature. Watch the leaves as they reach out towards the sky, the green leaves, the blue sky, the white clouds, the beautiful blue sky, rich and deep and blue, peaceful and calm. It provides us tranquility and bliss. The grandeur of the mountain, their breathtaking beauty, renewing and refreshing, are always there, always renewing, always refreshing, fulfilling the mountains. Slowly now bring your attention back to this place. As you did before, feel the floor beneath you. Take in a nice, deep breath. Stretch out whenever you're ready. Open your eyes, feeling refreshed and renewed. May you know kindness. May you know love. May you know peace, and may you know joy. Thank you all very, very much. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And Meg and I will see you next week. Thank you. Have a beautiful night. Good night.